Alright, boils and ghouls, Slasher September continues on with Candyman 3, Day of the Dead from 1999. Now, I've been seeing this movie in a very, very long time. I remember it being pretty bad, but I did the first two. The first one is a top film of mine, and the score from Philip Glass, as many of you know, is a huge reason that the original Candyman is a masterpiece for me. Luckily, in Farewell to the Flesh, the second film, we had Philip Glass's music still in there. I know that it's not in this third film, so that immediately is a huge negative for me. This is, I think, more of a slasher film than especially the first. I don't consider the first one even a slasher. The second one has more slasher elements, and by this film, it's pretty much like a slasher film, so it makes the cut. But we do have Tony Todd, and he's phenomenal in everything. So there's a positive for the movie right there. But yeah, this is going to be like a blind watch pretty much, because I haven't seen this in years. So let's talk Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. Now, the second film, Farewell to the Flesh, had a theatrical release. This movie was direct-to-video, and it shows within the first 10 minutes of this movie. This does, though, follow the same story as 2, which I totally forgot that it did. We have the daughter of Annie, the main character from the second film, Caroline, and now this is like in 2020, it flashes forward like 25 years or something, so it's like a late Friday installment time jump that we get here. So Caroline, very hot by the way, the actress, she ends up giving basically a whole recap of this series, and that she's the great-granddaughter, I'm pretty sure it is, of Daniel Robitaille, who was the Candyman, and explains how he died, and the bees and the honey, and all that shit. And she's telling it to a friend of hers, and the friend brings her to a mirror and says, you gotta confront your fear, it's just a story. They say it 4 times, and then don't get the 5th time. She ends up saying, no, you're right, it's just a story. Then fucking say it the 5th time then. It's not a good friend. She didn't help her through anything. But they are in, I'm pretty sure, California, and the festival of the Day of the Dead is upon us. So Caroline ends up going to this art gallery that her friend Miguel is hosting, and it's all artwork of Candyman. And she's pissed because Daniel Robitaille, the real person, not the myth Candyman, is a relative she's a descendant of. So she's opposed to this, and then he ends up like a snake oil salesman, able to sell her on the idea, don't worry, it'll be fine. I gotta say though, for direct-to-video, the movie looks really good. Like, it looks just like the second film. It looks like a direct continuation. The cinematography, the way the film looks, the atmosphere to it, it's good so far. It's not as bad as I remember. Gotta love the random synchronicities that life throws at you and all the connections between stuff you watch. I just started rewatching Prison Break for the first time in years. I loved that show back in the day. First few seasons. Whatever. Bellick, the dickhead police officer, correctional guard at the prison in the first season, and then chases after them in the second one. He's in this movie. So that's weird. I haven't seen that actor in ages, since Prison Break. I just rewatched it, and now he's in Candyman Day of the Dead. And he plays a racist piece of shit cop in this too. Caroline, it's one of them. They just said Carolyn, and this is another thing. It's already spending way too much time retreading on all the events of the past movie and the history of Candyman. We just had Carolyn say to her friend the whole history, and now we're at the art gallery and this guy Miguel is starting to give a whole speech while presenting, I think they're actually the paintings of Daniel Robitaille, his paintings, and he's giving the whole backstory again, and it's like we're 20 minutes almost into this movie. It's time to move on to new stuff. But in some of those scenes, you see Daniel Robitaille with Carolyn back in the day, before he got killed, obviously. Nice tits on her. Slasher September. The bees look really good again for the 3rd movie in a row. Alright, this really doesn't matter at all, but we gotta do it. He says, Miguel, while giving this whole speech on Daniel Robitaille's life, and we get the flashbacks. He says that the townsfolk, when they killed him, they were chanting Candyman. And he says before they can get out the 5th Candyman, he died. So then why do you have to say his name 5 times? Shouldn't you just have to say it 4 times? The chant was only said 4 times before he died. They didn't get to the 5th time. So why is it doesn't have to do with anything, but it's something to ponder. And then, of course, it is Carolyn. She gets up and she gives a little speech on, again, how she thinks, remember him for his art and who he really was, not for the myth of the Candyman. And then Miguel ends up talking her into saying it 5 times in the mirror. Then we get a stupid fucking jump scare when some nutcase just runs into the art gallery and starts screaming like, oh, he's coming for you, and they have to drag him out. Alright, in defense of it, it's not really a crazy person. It's the guy that Miguel paid off to scare everybody. But it's not any better. It's still a stupid jump scare because instead of just being a random crazy person running in and causing a dumb jump scare, it's an actor pretending to be a random crazy person running in and having a dumb jump scare. So either way, it's stupid. Yeah, this movie already is getting pretty slow. And we just got into the second act. Carolyn gets visited by Candyman, and it's all just very derivative of both the first and the second film. I said in the video I did on the second movie that it feels a little derivative of the first one, but it was still handled well. Here it's just like third time, it's the same shit. He comes, the bees are cool again, and props to them with the budget, whatever it was for this direct-to-video movie, for having real bees, for the most part. They might have had some CG in the train tunnel just now, where he appeared to her, but then you see her wake up on a bench, there's a real bee on her, and he definitely has had some actual bees on him. So props to them for getting actual bees and sticking to that. But that whole scene in the train tunnel with Candyman and Carolyn, that's not going to get confusing, just feels like a complete retread of the parking garage scene in the original. Just done worse in every way. Also, happy Labor Day, guys. I forgot to open with that. And I could have just recorded that and put it at the beginning while editing, and you would never know. That way, in case you notice I didn't say it, you might be thinking, I can't believe you didn't say it. Oh, alright, never mind, he got there. Yeah, I spoke too soon about the bees, because then we get a scene with Miguel and the girl that he's banging. He says she's a model. She's not bad looking. Tits from her too, so you get that in this slasher film. Candyman pays them a visit. But first, a whole bunch of CGI bees come and swarm around the woman and just sting her to death because she dies in the end. Candyman does nothing else to her. A bunch of CGI. It doesn't look bad, though. It doesn't look terrible. And then Candyman appears behind Miguel and hooks him through the back and it comes out his chest. That looks good. Like, the gore so far looks just like the second film, which wasn't too far off from the original. So all the kills, which aren't really a huge emphasis in these movies, they all look pretty good. So Carolyn walks in and finds, I guess he didn't mutilate the woman's corpse after she died from the bee stings, because she's gutted open too. Both their bodies. The police question her for a bit. We get Bellick from Prison Break again, give it a little speech to her, interrogating her. And apparently Miguel's art show was broken into, and all of the Candyman's artwork has been stolen. And they think it's connected, so now there's a whole art thing. And now I'm starting to remember some of this. Doesn't the art contain like some type of magic power that's supposed to like put him at rest or some stupid shit? Because I'm feeling like that's where this goes. So Caroline's starting to break. She hears Candyman say Caroline, so he says it that way. Tony Todd knows what's up. She ends up hearing Tamara, her roommate, her friend, screaming and saying, don't kill me, don't kill me. And she lost her keys. She's fumbling for her keys. And then she opens the door and she turns around and screams, I got the part. So she was just reading for this horror movie. It's stupid. But then we see a flashback that's done pretty well, where we see Caroline's mom Annie from the first movie, she ended up summoning Candyman when she got a lot older, and she ended up getting her throat slit in the bathtub by Candyman with the hook, and the wound looks good, the blood in the water, it's shot really well. There's a lot of fade to white in this movie. It's like a little overused. This is like the 5th time that they've used that. And the amount that bees in general are used in this film.
Beads.
Bees?
Beads.
Beads?
Job's not on board.
How hard can it be?
It feels like this movie was sponsored by Benton's Bee Farm. Not a real company, but it sounded good, right? So David is the name of the actor who was paid off to do the stupid jump scare. He shows up to Caroline's house and says, he's the one that's the suspect from Bellick, who's in this movie a lot. He's like the lead detective. He's the main suspect, so he shows up saying, I didn't do this. Like, I've known Miguel for years. We went to school together. I did not kill him. I wouldn't kill anybody. And she knows, because she knows and thinks it's actually Candyman. So he says the word on the street is that a gang broke into the art gallery and stole all of Daniel Robitaille's paintings. So her idea is to go find this gang so they can prove that they're the ones who killed Miguel and the girl, and that this guy David couldn't have done it. I don't know, it's a little out there. Like the other 2 movies, there are some nice shots and cool artwork in this. There's a mural which is very similar, as I said in the video for 2, was very similar to the original. But it still looks cool. It's like an open mouth mural of the Candyman. It's in blue though, and it's on like a shack, and there's a bee that's center stage. I'm telling you, something with bees.
But I kind of got my hands full with these babies. Got bees! No bees! Get it!
They don't allow you to have bees in here.
And some of the paintings too, like there's some good artwork in this movie. And as usual, Tony Todd kills it in all the scenes that he's been in so far in this movie. She's at this diner with David, or restaurant, whatever, and goes into the bathroom, and cool shot, she sees like the ghost of her dead mother, Annie, standing there naked with her throat slit like she was in the bathtub, how she died, with the blood pouring down, and then Candyman appears behind her and delivers his just sensual, sexual, voicey dialogue. Oh, how do you not love his voice? This is when this movie starts getting kind of stupid, and I knew it was heading in this direction. They end up going to the grandma of David, and she's like a spiritual healer, and she ends up doing some voodoo shit, and she takes an egg and puts it in front of Caroline, says to say the evil's name. She says Candyman. She breaks the egg, and there's like a little red blood spot on the top of the egg, and then he has to take the grandma out of the room for a second, and it actually looks kind of cool. The effect of the blood start to drip out of the egg, and then, of course, a bee starts coming out of the egg and flying around, and then all just for another stupid jump scare with a telephone ringing, just for her to turn around for another jump scare from David's like 10-year-old daughter standing there. The jump scares are terrible in this film, just like in the second movie. That was one of the biggest gripes I had with the second one, is the jump scares. They're worse than this. But yeah, the grandma tells Caroline that you have to defeat the good in order to defeat the evil also. And the good's in the paintings. It's not good, ironically. This movie is real fucking boring. Like, really, really hard to sit through. Just the story sucks is the biggest issue with this. The script is just not good. It's not interesting. It's not entertaining. And then you don't even really have a lot of kills. We've had 2 so far. Well, the double kill, so 3. But there's no variety in the kills in this franchise, because he just either takes his hook and hooks him through the back and tugs up, or through the front and tugs up. That's Candyman's whole MO. So at this point, 3 movies into a franchise, even the kills don't make this worth watching. I would never watch this movie again. But we get this whole long romantic scene between Caroline and David, and there's candles everywhere, and then they start fucking, and he starts eating her pussy a bit, and then it turns into Candyman, and Candyman is like touching her lips saying, "Be my victim." Same lines from throughout the last two movies. It just feels so recycled. Everything in this movie, nothing original, nothing for it to stand out, no reason for this to exist really in any way. But after all that whole sequence, it's pretty long with her and David, then she just wakes up in her apartment with Tamara, her roommate, and she's saying, "No, you've been here the whole time." But then Candyman shows up behind Tamara and guts her like a fish. Looks good, but it's just like Bernadette getting killed in the original movie. And then, this is pretty cool. The cops come for her and arrest her or take her in for questioning, and we see Bellick again. He friggin' hates this woman. He hates everybody, this guy. And they're looking for David, which she doesn't know where he is. And she gets in the cop car, and the cop who's driving, his chest just explodes, and blood flies onto the window, and then you see the hook going into him. That looks pretty cool. So then we see that cool mural with the blue painted Candyman face with the open mouth. That's where the door is open. This is like his new lair for this movie, I guess, because he has David in there, like on hooks, suspended in the air with bees on him. That's cool too. And then the Day of the Dead celebration is underway. So she goes back to the grandma, and yeah, she says, "You got to destroy the good, destroy his paintings." Gives her like a vision and shit, so it's so obvious to everyone, just in case you were stumped with this really intricate plot, that's what she has to destroy. She has that main painting of her ancestor Caroline that Daniel Robitaille did, so I'm guessing that's maybe the most powerful painting. And then there's some cool shots. She's getting chased through the Day of the Dead parade and ceremony by Candyman. You get some cool shots of him. The police are after her. Like, everybody's chasing this bitch. So this starts getting off the rails at this point. She finally gets to the gang that was mentioned earlier that stole all the artwork. And they turn out being, they're not even really a gang. They're just like a group of people who worship the Candyman. And they want to sacrifice Caroline to Candyman, so they summon him. But it backfires, and he kills the shit out of everyone. And for a second, I was going to say, okay, we got like 5-6 people here. Maybe we'll get a nice little massacre. But of course, with the budget here, you get nothing. You see one guy get sliced across the face, and then it just pans in on her freaking out with a gag in her mouth as you hear the rest of them all get butchered to death. You don't see a thing. I wish we did. That would have added a few points to this. So it's the main picture, the portrait of Daniel Robitaille. That's the one that has to be destroyed, I guess, because that's the only one that's there in this ending. But yet he killed all the gang members who stole the painting. So how did it get to this location, his little lair that he has David on the hooks? He had to have brought it, Candyman himself, because it's on an altar, it's got candles under it. But doesn't he know that if she destroys that painting, that means he's gone for good and dead, like deader than dead? So why would he even bring it? Wouldn't he tuck that shit away somewhere where she can never find it? I don't know. But same type of thing as the original with the kiss and the real bees, though, again, props, coming out of his mouth, and then there's bees everywhere. She takes a hook and she slices the painting, and then he gets a wound, and then she slices again, and another wound. The bees are swarming out like crazy, and she lights the painting on fire, and the effects here, but whatever. He bursts into flames after some weird effects, and he's gone for good, supposedly. And then, for some reason, the detective, whatever his name, Bellick from Prison Break, it's been the whole video, he shows up, and he has a hook, and he says, "I'm the Candyman," after saying that she disgusts him, and he goes to kill her, and he gets shot in the back of the head by the other detective who was following him. And then she remembers something her mom said to destroy the myth. So she says that it was all him. That's what happened. She blames all these murders on this dead lunatic cop. Then the news report, you see, it's a year-long investigation, internal affairs, and they come to the conclusion that that detective was solely responsible for what has been dubbed the Candyman murders. So everything seems to have turned out all right for Caroline. All is well in Tinseltown. And she takes a glance over at that mirror. She says there's no such thing as Candyman. And then, of course, one more jump scare. You get a stupid hook comes through the mirror. And then she wakes up. And she's like having a picnic with seriously, she's having a picnic with David and his little daughter next to her mom Annie's grave, and it ends. It's not a terrible movie. It's not as bad as I remember, that's for sure. But oh, it's so boring. It's so uneventful. It's so derivative. It's like almost a remake of the original, but done worse in every single way. We don't have Philip Glass's iconic score. Tony Todd does excellent, as always, with that voice. The main chick who plays Caroline is alright. Like, she's not great. The rest of the acting isn't great either from anybody. But the script is terrible for this movie. So, it's not a bad film. But I would never watch this again. I would never throw this on again. First movie is a masterpiece. Second movie, it's, I said, like a decent follow-up and companion piece. It's a nice double feature to watch the original and Farewell to the Flesh. This movie you never have to see again. After you see it once, and I've seen it a few times, now after I've talked it all out, no, I never have to see this again. So we have Candyman from, 2021 is the last one in this franchise. So maybe that'll come out sometime soon. Hope everyone's having a great Labor Day, a safe Labor Day, and I will talk to everybody soon. Take care, guys.